Your daily fix of women's mixed martial arts from the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. Be in the loop, cause Golden State Media Concepts got you covered. Get your fix of women's MMA with Got You Covered on Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Arnel de Leon, and hopefully you are doing well for yourself. You, your friends, your family, whether you live in the States or internationally, I hope you are doing fine for yourself. Stay healthy, be safe, and oh my goodness, we are halfway there with 2020. Actually, we're in August. We have 4 months left of the year of 2020. Let's just cross our fingers and hope the meteor doesn't come through and wipes it all out. Alright? Let's cross our fingers there. So coming up, we have another UFC event this Saturday. So this upcoming Saturday is going to be a headline with Derek Lewis against Alexei Oleinik, and also a really eye-opening fight here in terms of the women's divisions. We have Yannick against Julia Stardenko. So if you've never heard of Stardenko, put up a Julia Stardenko currently on YouTube. I forgot who exactly she fought, but she had, at least in my book, the second best fights of the entire year. The two best fights of the year so far has to be Joanne Calderwood versus Weili Zhang. Okay, here it is. And then Julia Stardenko against Lisa Versosa. Those two fights to me are the two best fights of the year. And that's not me just saying that because I'm doing a podcast for women's mixed martial arts. Even when I do the podcast for the male's mixed martial arts, I always say Lisa Versosa, Julian Stardenko, and then Joanne Calderwood and Weili Zhang are the two best fights of the entire year, in my opinion. And also, because the way how I measure what the best fights of the year are, or best fight of the night, is the one that's the most exciting, and the one that's mostly me sticking my head to the wall, sticking my head to the TV screen, and paying attention the entire time. Cause I'm gonna be blatantly honest with you right now, blatantly honest. Whenever I watch a lot of UFC events, there are a lot of fights where I just open up my phone and start looking at anything else, because some fights get incredibly boring. I'm gonna be honest with you, when I saw Jorge Masvidal against Kamaru Usman, that fight, by the end of the third round, I started kind of dozing off. I started looking at my phone, cooking food, getting a drink of water, I don't know, doing lifting weights. I'm doing something to keep me awake watching this fight. And it's admittedly because the fight got kind of boring. And so Lisa Versosa and Julian Stardenko, that was a really insane fight. It is measurable to Weili Zhang against Joanne Calderwood. In my opinion, I'm still gonna place the Weili Zhang versus Yuan just a little bit higher, just because the Stardenko fight, at some point, it became the two fighters really gassed out compared to the Weili Zhang Yuan fights, in which they were able to consistently keep pace, and also the pace was a lot more faster. So that's why I'm putting that fight ahead there. But she's gonna be fighting against a returning Yannick, who's been gone for the better part of, let's say, 10 months. Yeah, she's been gone for about 10 months at this point now. So, Kutskaya versus Stardenko here. Who is your pick to win it? I honestly don't know. I legitimately did not know what the result of this fight is. I'm super excited for it. It's a fight with a big question mark. A really big question mark. That, along with the Darren Stewart against Maki Patello fight, is also another huge question mark. But Yannick against Julian Stardenko, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight ends up being fight of the night. Because let me just tell you what the fight card is for this upcoming Saturday, August 8th, for UFC Fight Night. We have Derek Lewis versus Alexei Oleinik. That fight can either be super exciting or really boring and a chore to watch. We have Omari Akhmedov against Chris Weidman. That's gonna be a fast-paced fight. And what I mean, that the pacing of that fight will definitely be quick. It'll be one of the more quicker fights of the entire night. And it's strange because it's Chris Weidman going back to the middleweight division after failing his lightweight division, his lightweight debut. So, Omari Akhmedov versus Chris Weidman, that's gonna be a fun one. And I really believe Omari Akhmedov might pull off an upset, kind of an upset victory. I don't know what would be the upset victory here, since considering that Chris Weidman has lost his 5 of his past 6 fights, while Omar Akhmedov is kind of on a win streak right now. I think he's on a 5-fight win streak. And Maki Patello versus Darren Stewart. Honestly, right now, I don't know that much about Patello, but I'm very high on Darren Stewart. And then Yannick versus Julian Srilanko. That's going to be incredibly fun, as this, just as fun, if not more fun, than Benelli Dariush against Scott Holtzman. Wow. In my opinion, the two most exciting fights for this upcoming Saturday is Benelli Dariush against Scott Holtzman and Yannick against Julian Srilanko. So I'm excited for that. I really am. I'm really happy for that matchup, and I really can't wait. I want to know the betting odds for the fight here. So this is coming from DraftKings Nation here. I just want to see what people's predictions are for this fight, because Kunitskaya is coming off ring rust. And that to me is a huge red flag whenever I pick somebody winning. Now, of course, Conor McGregor, he won his fight through ring rust, but I think for the most part, I'm kind of iffy on that. So, Yannick is coming into the fight minus 225 against Srilanko. And I think the reason why a lot of people are really down on Srilanko is the fact that Srilanko, she's coming in from Invicta, and no disrespect to the Invicta women fighters, but the level of competition between Invicta versus the UFC is so high that it's a safer bet to pick on somebody whose credibility is a lot more consistent and has been tested compared to Srilanko, who I think she has been tested in. She's been tested relative to what her position is in the world of mixed martial arts. She's definitely been tested in Invicta, but if Yannick ends up losing this bout to Stardenko, Srilanko could immediately jump her way into being the top 15, top 12, top 10 of the division. What division would this be? I think if it's strawweight division, this would be fun. Bantamweights. Srilanko is a bigger fighter. Her competing at bantamweights? Dude, oh man. Julian Srilanko against Jermaine Ranime. Wow. That's going to be really fun. But I'm also excited for the return of Yannick Kunitskaya. Once again, she hasn't fought in about 10 months. I think she's recently went through a pregnancy right now. So, Yannick Kunitskaya, I'm unsure about her current status is right now, health-wise. But I'm expecting really good things out of both fighters. I really am. And so that's coming up this Saturday. But what happened this past Saturday with another UFC Fight Night event? So the only women's bout on August 1st at the UFC Apex Facility Building was Joanne Calderwood versus Jennifer Maia. Joanne Calderwood had about 8 days prep time when prepping up against Jennifer Maia. Yes, Jennifer Maia also had 8 days prep time against Joanne Calderwood. But at least Jennifer Maia, at least she was training. She was actively training, and she was getting ready for a fight, unlike Joanne Calderwood, who had about 8 days to A, weight cut, B, study her opponent, and C, to actually train. And so Joanne Calderwood versus Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia ended up winning this fight in the first round, 4 minutes and 20 seconds in, via armbar. And here's the thing, Jennifer Maia is now the new number 1 contender against Valentina Shevchenko for the women's flyweight title. When is Valentina coming back? I don't know. I feel really bad here for Joanne Calderwood. And the reason why I feel really bad for Joanne Calderwood was because she's been waiting. She's been waiting for the better part of 8 months to fight against Valentina Shevchenko. She's been waiting. And she just never had the opportunity to fight against Valentina because, COVID. Hey, it's a combination of COVID, Valentina shooting a film, and doing press release for a film, like promoting the film. And also Valentina currently rehabbing 3 injuries. So there are 3 things holding back Joanne Calderwood from fighting against Valentina Shevchenko. And so Joanne Calderwood had 2 options here. She could either A, hold off her number 1 contendership, just wait out for what could possibly be an entire year. An entire year of no fighting, no money going to your bank account at all for 1 full year amidst this whole COVID-19 pandemic issue. Or she can start making money and risk her number 1 contendership spot to somebody else if she were to lose. And guess what? That second thing happened. Jennifer Maia is now the new number 1 contender against Valentina Shevchenko. Joanne Calderwood, she took the risk for the sake of the money. Now, we don't know what the repercussions is for Joanne Calderwood, because I'll tell you right now, Joanne Calderwood, she probably has to win 2 more fights. She needs to win 2 more fights in order for her to bounce back and possibly get a title fight against Valentina. That's a sad truth there. And then we have Jennifer Maia, who is considered the next fighter to fight against Valentina. And I'll tell you about this fight here between Yuan and Jennifer Maia here. This really was an impressive performance of Maia. Maia, right at the get-go, her head movement was on point. It's like the bell rang, and then both fighters meet each other in the center of the octagon, and the head movement, the jabs, the striking of Jennifer Maia was on point, beautiful. It was great to watch. But also, even though Maia was applying a whole lot of pressure onto Joanne Calderwood, Calderwood herself did a really good job. She did a really good job counter-fighting for the most part here. And when I look at the fight stats, it tells a very strange story here. So the fight stats goes in with Joanne Calderwood landing 33 of 57. She landed 58% of her total strikes. She landed 53% of her total of her significant strikes, 26 of 49, and had 1 takedown. But there's an asterisk to that 1 takedown, to be honest with you. I'll explain later here. But Jennifer Maia, she landed 63% of her total strikes. She did a really good job. Both fighters were doing awesome with their stand-up game. Jennifer Maia landed 54% of her strikes. Both fighters have very similar numbers in their significant strikes. But here's the thing, Jennifer Maia did not have a takedown. Not even a takedown attempt. But Joanne Calderwood, she had 1 takedown. But that takedown was the reason as to why Joanne Calderwood lost the fight. Gonna be honest with you. Because both these fighters are trading shots. And Jennifer Maia, although she's very accurate, and I think Jennifer Maia's strikes just did a little bit more damage than Joanne Calderwood, while Joanne Calderwood is having a good volume of counter strikes going into Maia. But Joanne Calderwood in the end, she has 1 minute left. She's like, okay, I want to go I'm pretty sure she knew this round is very even. I don't want to leave it to the judges, because we hear all the time by Dana White, never leave it to the judges. Joanne Calderwood, she shoots in for a really bad looking double leg takedown, in the sense that she barely bent over her hip or bent her knees at all. It's more like she kind of bum rushed her opponent. You know, there's like with like homeless people or zombies, and that you're just minding your own business, then a homeless person or a zombie comes over, and they tackle you, but they tackle you without even really leaping or getting off their legs. They tackle you with both of their arms extended out. And so Calderwood, she pretty much bum rushed like a zombie / homeless person in her takedown on Jennifer Maia. And here's the thing. So, amidst her taking down Jennifer Maia reversed all the momentum back towards Joanne Calderwood. So the result was, yes, Calderwood got the takedown, but she was immediately reversed within just a second of both of them getting to the ground. Which led to Jennifer Maia taking advantage. She was able to go get side control onto Joanne Calderwood. Joanne Calderwood tried to fight it, but Jennifer Maia was able to go cinch in an armbar. Congratulations for Jennifer Maia. You should not give the takedown score to Joanne Calderwood. I know it doesn't matter. In the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter that Joanne Calderwood got a takedown, and it's recorded in history. But still though, I don't know. It's like, I don't think fighters should be rewarded for having their takedowns being reversed. And also, Joanne Calderwood, she passed out, apparently, right after the fight. There was news going out there that Joanne Calderwood and some other fighter, right after the fight ended, they went backstage or to the locker room, and they ended up passing out. And sadly, Joanne Calderwood, she was taken straight to the hospital. Good news though, she is doing fine. Joanne Calderwood just recently released a statement via social media, and it says over here that, well, that was a rough night at the office. Congratulations to Jennifer Maia. I'm so grateful for my family, friends, and fans that are here to help pick me up in this crazy life we all share. It's a fight every day. We all fight, but it's not every day it goes our way. Thanks to all the UFC staff, the medics and docs, the UMC. Oh, and my knight in shining armor, Bigwood MMA 702. Sorry for scaring you, babe. # never give up. And then it shows Joanne Calderwood giving the middle finger on her Instagram. And she's still decked out in her MMA gear, but she has like the face mask there, and you have an IVs going through her arm. It's very, very strange. It really is. And so Joanne Calderwood, it's a good thing for her. She's safe. She's healthy. She really needs to check up on that on her passing out or after her fights. Hopefully things go well for Joanne Calderwood in the future, but she has a long way back into being a number one contender again. So you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast. Coming back right after the short break here with some more MMA news. See you soon.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info. Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. So I'm going to go through a plethora of news over here. UFC's targeting Jessica Andrade versus Jessica Ai flyweight fight on October 17 fight night. An exciting fight matchup is reportedly on the works for a UFC Fight Night event coming up in October. First reported in by Brett Okamoto. Sources told ESPN on Thursday that'll be Jessica Ai against Jessica Andrade. That's very interesting for Jessica Andrade, honestly. I'm surprised she's going to be accepting that matchup. But then again, it's coming up in just 2 weeks' time. These fighters have to make as much money as they can. I've talked about fighter economics all the time here. And this is an easy paycheck for Jessica Andrade. It is. Now, that's not me batting eye on Jessica Ai. It's the fact that Jessica Ai's recent performance hasn't all been that well. So, Jessica Andrade currently rides a 2-fight skid for the first time in her career, losing to two really great fighters, former champion Rosnami Yunus and current champ Weili Zhang. Meanwhile, Jessica Evil Eye challenged Shevchenko for the flyweight belt at 238 in 2019, but was defeated via second round TKO. She bounced back from the loss with a decision over Vivian Araujo back at UFC 245. Jessica Eye competed once in 2020, losing a decision to Cynthia Calivlllo at the UFC Vegas 2 main event, and that fight really spotlighted how great Cynthia Calivlllo is. So Jessica Andrade versus Jessica Ai. Battle of the Jessicas. Who's gonna win this bout here? My money is on Jessica Andrade right now, off the basis of Jessica Ai's performance against Cynthia Calivlllo. And that's, if it was a wrestler versus a grappler battle, it'd be understandable as to why Jessica Ai lost. But it wasn't. It was, Cynthia Calivlllo was the complete package in the entire fight. There wasn't a single aspect of the fight game that Jessica Ai did better at than Cynthia. And yeah, she defeated Viviane Araujo. Really impressive performance there. But I always say that the fighter is as good as their most recent fights. And when I talk about their recent performance against Cynthia Calivlllo, I'm just like, I'm not really bought in. I think stylistically wise, here's the thing. So, I struggled, despite having a significant advantage in the reach, struggled mightily against Cynthia. And the way how I see this matchup here with Andrade is really good at pressure fighting her opponents. And unless you're like absolute A tier in your ability to counterfight and your footwork, there's no way you're going to defeat Jessica Andrade. Ever. Jessica Andrade is one of the elite fighters in all the women's divisions. She's pound for pound the best fighters of all the women in the UFC. And so for Jessica Ai, do I think she's good enough in her footwork and her counterfighting to go stop or to go against someone like Jessica Andrade? Honestly, no. I do not have that much faith on Jessica Evil Eye to go and, stand toe to toe with Jessica Andrade. I can see this fight with Jessica Eye being overwhelmed by Jessica Andrade's pressure. I'm saying the word Jessica, right? So I'm saying Jessica Eye is going to be overwhelmed by Jessica Andrade's pressure, and unlike Rose Namajunas or Weili Zhang, whose counterpunching and footwork in boxing is at the absolute highest level, I don't think Jessica Eye is in the same level of those two. So Andrade isn't going to deal with the same issue or the same movement speed or deal with the same type of fighter Jessica Eye is compared to those other two fighters. And for that reason, I say Andrade is going to win this fight. Good. So now, Jessica is lucky to have even this opportunity. If Jessica were to defeat Jessica Andrade, wow. Talk about a huge upset. Insanely huge upset. I won't be surprised if the betting odds here is like minus and plus 300. But yeah, if I was able to pull off the victory here, good for her. And if Jessica Andrade is able to pull off the victory on Jessica Eye, well, you know what? She's making money. She's going to make another extra 6 figures. So good for her. And another matchup that has been announced, it's going to be Julian Robertson is expected to fight against Pollyanna Patello on October 17. So the Savage last competed in June, defeating Courtney Casey by submission. She's tied with Valentina Shevchenko and top contender Katlyn Chookagian. And I don't think honestly right now, I don't think Chookagian is going to get another title fight anytime soon. I really don't. For most wins ever in UFC flyweight history, but after going 2-1 as a strawweight, Patello moved up to flyweight division in her UFC 125 debut. She defeated Lauren Murphy by decision in April 2019. Yikes. So Julian Robertson should win here. She should. But then again, it's UFC, man. You can't, it's the world of mixed martial arts. You really can't predict everything that's gonna go and be happening here. And so pushing towards the news here, One Championships. So One Championship made its return, and also I'm gonna go be telling you the results here. It's actually, if you guys haven't watched One Championships, in terms of presentation stuff, it's really good. It's a really strong presentation here. It had a women's bout between Stam Fairtex against Sunisa Srisan, to which Stam Fairtex was able to defeat Sunisa via first round TKO. I'm telling you right now, if you don't keep up with the woman in One Championships, I highly recommend you do right now, because there's a lot of hidden talent there, and there's a lot of talent over there that you'll like to see go compete in, America. And so with Fight Island coming to a close, because this past Saturday was the first event for the UFC after coming back from Fight Island, I'll be going over what is next for the competitors of Fight Island 1, 2, and 3 in the women's divisions here. And so this article that's also being written up, it's coming in from WMMA Rankings, written by Nick. And so Yas Island in Abu Dhabi, better known most as Fight Island, has emerged as the interim fight capital of the world during the pandemic, and it's this month that happened for the UFC at Fight Island was really huge. We had 2 vacant champions, like, newly being crowned. And they're 2, people that people don't really expect all that much, really. So, Fight Island number 1, we have Lyanna Jojo versus Diana Babida, winning her fight via armbar submission. Talia Santos defeating Molly McCann via NAS decision. Honestly, I thought Molly McCann would have won that fight. Really? I don't know. I feel like Molly should have won. Ariana Lipsky against Luana Carolina. She won that fight via submission. Incredibly impressive performance. I think that was the one where she was able to bend the person's leg back behind her neck. I mean, yeah, it's absolute craziness. And then on 3, we had Pani Kianzad defeating Beth Correia, and Carlos Esparza defeating Marina Rodriguez via split decision. A really good showcase there. So let's go over what we can expect off all these women going forward. So, Diana Babida, it was a tough trip for Fight Island for Babida, who found herself on the wrong end of submission at 24 years old. The Warrior Princess has time on her side, and despite being 0-2 in the octagon, I am confident she can put things together and bounce back. Babida may need some time to heal her arm, but when she is ready to return, a fun stylistic matchup for her is Justine Kish, who is 1-1 in the UFC flyweight division since moving up in 2018. So that makes sense for her. She's only 24 years old. She's got a long career ahead of her. Lyanna Jojo, after making her UFC debut as a bantamweight, Jojo moved down to the flyweight division for her sophomore appearance. In doing so, she showed some serious ground skills and nabbed her 6th career submission victory. Sabina Mazo does not currently have a fight booked. Perhaps a fight between these two could be telling for where they are standing in the division. Jojo would test Mazo's grappling, and Mazo would test Jojo's striking. Molly McCann. So on Fight Island, McCann's fight momentum was halted by Brazil Santos. She is a game fighter who's usually involved in entertaining scraps. She was scheduled to fight against Ashley Evans-Smith in March. However, due to COVID-19, it was forced to be cancelled. 4 months later, the fight will still make sense. Evans-Smith is coming off a loss and has not fought since February 2019. It makes sense for both these fighters right now, who are both coming off losses, to go meet up in the octagon. Talia Santos. Talia Santos' Fight Island was a coming out party. The Brazilian looked sharper than ever and showed skills on the feet and on the ground. In her first fight since February 2019, Santos finds herself close to cracking a top 15. A matchup with Antina Shevchenko, who is currently ranked number 13 in the UFC fight rankings, is a fun stylistic matchup that makes sense from a rankings perspective. Kind of... They're really high in Antina Shevchenko, though. That's the weird part. Is that she shouldn't be fighting... Okay, it makes sense in terms of rankings. And I think they halted the train on really pushing Antina. Lyanna Carolina, after succumbing a brutal knee... Okay, here's another thing. I don't know. Is Talia Santos the best matchup against Antonina? Is she really? I feel like it's a fight that's meant for Antonina to go lose. It's weird because I myself would like to see Antonina climb up the rankings here, and she should get some easier matchups if that's a real possibility. But Lyanna Carolina, after succumbing a brutal knee bar finish on Fight Island, she could find herself out for up to 6 months. Yikes. COVID-19 especially. She's also an undercard fighter. There may be different matchups available for her when she returns. However, a fight with China's Yanan Mu makes sense. Does it make sense? Well, both of them have been gone through injury or have had their fights been cancelled. But Yanan Mu seems too advanced for Lyanna Carolina. But if you just look at the records, it makes sense because Lyanna is only 6-2. So Arnel Lipsky lived up her moniker on Fight Island with an instant submission of the year contender after a tough start with her UFC career. It looks like Lipsky is turning a corner and putting things together. Now riding a 2-fight win streak with another win or two, the former KSW champ will find herself knocking at the doorstep in the top 15. Yeah, she needs about 2-3 more victories until she really gets into the top 10 or cements herself in the top 10 and being safe there. A fight between her and Courtney Casey would make a fun matchup. Casey is an experienced and known name in the UFC who is frequently involved in exciting fights. Who would want to beat Casey and Arnel Lipsky? In terms of style-wise, it makes sense for Lipsky to defeat Courtney Casey. Yeah, I'll put my money on Arnel Lipsky there. Just because stylistically, Courtney Casey being much more of a striker, Courtney Casey will be at that disadvantage there. We have, Beth Correa, the former Bantamweight title challenger, finds herself in a tough spot after dropping a decision on Fight Island. The loss cost Pitbull her number 15 rank, so she's right now currently unranked right now. With that being said, Correa is a brawler, and she'll be fighting Jessica Rose Clark versus Sarah Alpar. Jessica Rose Clark might win that matchup. So they're going to be fighting against Sarah Alpar there. Now here's all these women, some of these women will be available to fight still by the end of this year. We have 4 months left, and considering the status right now of America, these fighters got to make as much money as they can. So, Pani Kinzad showcased some slick boxing on Fight Island. Since competing at Tough 2018, Kinzad has shown improvements and growth in her bouts. After the fight, she called for a match with Raquel Pennington. Raquel Pennington right now? The current version of Raquel Pennington? Yeah, makes sense. While that may be a fairly big jump in the rankings, well, Raquel Pennington's past 5 fights haven't been good for her, so it makes sense as to challenge somebody who is somewhat still a big name, but since their momentum is on a downhill slope right now, it's a good chance for Kyanzid to really just jump her way through the rankings. The Bantamweight division is wide open with no clear pecking order. It'd be a great test to see where Pani fits in the division. If the matchup with Rocky doesn't come to fruition, a matchup with Lena Landsberg makes more sense from a rankings perspective. Yes, it makes sense from a rankings perspective right now, but you have to look beyond the rankings right now because I talked about this recently last week, where the women's bantamweight division, once you get, it's similar to the strawweight division, and that once you get to a certain point in the bantamweight division, even if you're ranked 6th or 7th, or if you're ranked 15th or 12th, their skill levels are relatively in the same boat. Like, there's a huge distance between the number 3, number 5 versus the number 7. Compared to number 7 and 6 with number 13, number 12, number 15, it's all that much. So Marina Rodriguez, she had a really good showing against Carla Esparza. She really did so. And a really fun one would be Marina Rodriguez against the loser of Claudia Cadella versus Yanchin. I would like to see Marina Rodriguez against Yuan. That to me would be a very fun fight. It'd be a lot more fun than the potential Claudia Cadella versus Carla Esparza fight. Okay, that's me kind of being kind of mean there, because Carla Esparza, she has a tendency of being a really boring fighter. Now, she had a really fun matchup against Marina Rodriguez. Carla Esparza really tried her hardest to make this fight both exciting and be very dominant for her. And she placed herself in a bad position at times in her fight with Marina in order to make the fight more exciting than it should be. But yeah, Claudia Cadella versus Carla Esparza, those two were initially going to be matched up against each other until the UFC booker was like, okay, no, we can't just award these two women's fighters who potentially should have lost their last fight, but to just kind of build them out though. So they had to endure fighting against somebody way lower in the rankings for them, and if they both win their fights, then they get matched up with each other. I mean, honestly, I'm not that excited for Esparza versus Claudia Cadella, but I am excited for the potential Yuan against Marina Rodriguez. That's a real fun one for me. And so you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after the short break here. See you soon.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
And we are back. Once again, you are listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast here. I'm just gonna go over all the there's a lot of fights coming up in the next 2 months here. It's very hectic right now for the UFC, considering the fact that there are a lot of impromptu fights. Most of the time, these fighters are prepped up like 3-4 months in advance, or even sometimes like 6 months in advance on when their fight's gonna happen. These fighters, it's just the scheduling for them. Especially for one of them, who I'm going to go over right now. But let me go over all the women's divisions right now and what we can expect off them for at least the next 4 months here. So we got Claudia Cadella against Yanchin. That will be a really fun one. I want Yanchin to go and win here. Honestly, so Claudia Cadella will probably be in the same... She's going to be in the same position as Carla Esparza in the fact that she has to put herself in a pretty bad situation in order to make herself look more impressive. And the reason for that is because the reason why Carla Esparza and Claudia Cadella didn't happen initially in the first place was because both fighters potentially should have lost, or was very likely of losing that fight. A lot of people thought that those two fighters recently lost their bouts against Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill. And so the UFC execs were like, okay, Esparza, Claudia, both of you, I don't think you guys are ready to fight at the highest level. So you're gonna fight one more person lower than you guys, and if you both win, you fight each other. And you have to fight each other, and you have to win your fights in impressive fashions. Now, Carla Esparza, she won her fight in a very, very impressive fashion against Marina Rodriguez. I thought Marina was going to defeat Carla Esparza. I thought we were going to see a very passive Carla Esparza like we did in her, like, 2 recent bouts. But instead, we have a very aggressive Carla Esparza who plays herself in bad situations in order to make the fight just look good. And so, for Claudia Cadella versus Yanchin is a terrifying striker. Very, very terrifying, very scary striker, and it's not a good idea to go straight up and bang with her, to go toe-to-toe and fight her in her range and box with her. Claudia Cadella can wrestle, but, man, this is a tough fight for Claudia Cadella. This might be a really exciting fight, just to see how desperate Claudia is to make this fight seem more exciting, or she's gonna be a lot more aggressive going for the finish here. Their fight's coming up on my birthday, 9/26. I know what I'm watching. Then we have Michelle Waterson versus Angela Hill. Their fight's coming up in 2 weeks' time, August 22nd. This will be another fun one because Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill, both of them are coming off very close losses against Carla Esparza and Michelle Waterson, so both of them are going to be incredibly aggressive in their bout coming up. And I can see this fight being 40 rounds of really fun action. Their fight's coming up August 22nd. Alexa Grasso versus Genio Kim. Alexa Grasso is recently coming off a loss from Carla Esparza. Can Kim, can she make weight? That's a story. That's a narrative so far. Amanda Ribas is not booked. So is Carolina Kowalczyk. She's also booked also. I'm pretty sure they will be booked by the end of this year, maybe, but they're both international fighters, so I don't know. Randa Marcos against Mackenzie Dern? Really? Randa Marcos against Mackenzie Dern. Randa Marcos just recently lost to Ribas. So I am surprised. How is she fighting against somebody higher in the rankings like Mackenzie Dern? Now, I'm not saying Mackenzie Dern is a top 10 fighter because she's not. But Mackenzie Dern, she's a huge name. And she's a big name. And not only that, she's a big name in the women's flyweight rankings. So, I'm guessing Randa Marcos is going to be making the transition. She should make the transition into fighting in the women's flyweight division. Because Randa Marcos right now, she's had a really bad run in her time in the women's flyweight division. She's right now currently 6-7 in her UFC career competing at the flyweight division. Yikes. Angela Hill versus Michelle Waterson, August 22. Mackenzie Dern versus Randa Marcos coming up on September 19th, a week before the September 26th show. We got Livia Renata Souza against Ashley Yoder. That's coming up in this 1 week's time. That's coming up August 15. Man, Souza just came off a loss against Brianna Van Buren. Don't feel bad about that. Verna Jandaroba is going to be fighting against Felice Herrig next week also, August 15th. Oh man, that could be a fight night candidate. Mackenzie Dern against Randa Marcos. Alright. Mackenzie Dern should defeat Randa. She should. And then we got Ashley Yoder. So that fight's coming up September 19. We got Pollyanna Viana against Emily Whitmore. They'll probably be fighting in the undercard, honestly. Coming up on August 29, just about 3 weeks time. Whitmore just recently lost to Amanda Ribas via submission, and she really should put her head down for that. We got Mizuki Inoue against Amanda Lemos coming up August 22nd also. And oh my gosh, we're getting fight cards with more than one fight. Thank goodness. Thank you. Loma Lukabumi against Jinyu Frey. Jinyu Frey just came out. Both these fighters are coming off losses. Jinyu Frey, I think she's definitely going to be struggling a lot making the transition into a bigger weight class. But the second time through, with her given a lot more prep, because when Jinyu Frey fought against Kay Hansen, they had about 1 week. They signed their UFC contract, and then were booked to fight each other within a week's time. And so this matchup here for Jinyu Frey against Loma Lukabumi, that fight is coming up on October 3rd. So she's about 2 months prep time for this. I'm looking at this next matchup here. So, we got Mallory Martin versus Hannah Cyphers, August 29. Hannah Moneymaker Cyphers is making her money. She is making her money. And Mallory Martin will also be making her money. Okay, I'm not trying to be mean here. I really am not. I'm not trying to be bully here. But Hannah Cyphers versus Mallory Martin, from rankings.MMA.com, Hannah Cyphers and Mallory Martin are ranked 28-29. And there's nothing really at stake here between Cyphers and Mallory Martin. The only thing really at stake here is how much money is their win bonus if one of them were to win this fight. Hannah Cyphers is coming off 3 losses, off 3 knockout artists and 3 really good strikers in Maria Agapova, Mackenzie Dern, and Angela Hill. Like, Hannah Cyphers is the Gilbert Burns of the women's divisions. She's always there. She's making money. Good for her. She's prepping up in short fight time. And this fight's coming up in 2 weeks. Hannah Cyphers and Mallory Martin, that's coming up August 29 also. Oh my goodness. This is so... Man, you know what? If they're making money, okay then. Like, I saw what Hannah Cyphers is making. She's making about $40,000 per fight. And this will be her 3rd fight in the year of 2020. So, she made 6 figures. She made $120,000 in the span of 1 year. As a fighter with a losing record in the UFC. She's making the most out of her career. And I can respect that. I really can. So, that's the women's flyweight divisions. Let's talk about the women's flyweight rankings here. Obviously, Jennifer Maia. So, Cynthia Calivlllo and Jennifer Maia, they really did their work bumping themselves up because they were nowhere near the top 10 this time last year. And now they're within the top 4. Cynthia Calivlllo, I think she should be matched up against Kayla Chookagian to go test them. Right now, it's Chookagian, Cynthia Calivlllo, and Jennifer Maia. They reign right now at the top of the division with Valentina Shevchenko holding the belt. We don't know if Valentina's coming back. Right now, those 3 are holding in the line. And also, Lauren Murphy, she's recently, is going off a win streak right now, recently defeating against Roxanne Modafferi. So yeah, things are getting kind of stable right now in the most rankings here. So Roxanne Modafferi, she's going to be matched up against Andrea Lee. That's going to be a fun one. Roxanne Modafferi is one of my favorite fighters out there because she's actually like really likable. Oh my goodness, Maria Agapova versus Shayna Dobson. Their fight's coming up on August 6th. The Roxanne Modafferi and Andrea Lee, that fight's coming up September 12th. But man, Maria Agapova versus Shayna Dobson. Maria Agapova is gonna win that fight. No disrespect to Shayna Dobson, but it's gonna be a scrap fight. It's gonna be a scrap. I don't think that fight's gonna last. It's gonna go past the first round. I genuinely don't. Mark it on your calendars. Maria Agapova against Shayna Dobson, August 22nd. That's gonna be a really fun one there. Marina Moroz against Montana De La Rosa. Oh wow, really? You're fighting De La Rosa? Okay, De La Rosa was a lot more higher rank she was a lot higher in the rankings last time I checked up her. But no, instead, Marina Moroz going up against Montana De La Rosa, September 5th, 2020. We got Maria Bueno Silva against Marimar Barella. So both of them are both recently coming off losses right now. And a win here should keep them almost near the top 10 in the rankings. And I would like to see Marimar Barella against Maria Agapova. I think that will be an awesome test. Or Maria Agapova against Andrea Lee or Roxanne Modafferi. There are a lot of women right now who are 11-15 who are just 1, maybe 2 fights away into cracking the top 10 right now. And that about does it for the women's flyweight division. Now what about the bantamweight division? I'm not even going to look up the featherweight division just because there's no names there. And that's not me being mean. It's not me being mean, but this is the cold hard truth. So once again, there's Juliana Pena against Jermaine Duranime. That's going to be a huge fight. Winner of that fight will probably fight against Amanda Nunes. Holly Holm versus Irene Aldana. That fight was going to happen, but then that fight got dropped, sadly. We also have Ciara Eubanks against Macy Chiasson. Oh, that's another cool one there. If you haven't watched Ciara Eubanks, you should. She's pretty much the bantamweight version of Jessica Andrade. In that, Eubanks looks so much smaller than all of her competitors, but she fights heavy and she fights really strong. if Sierra Eubanks were to move one weight division down to flyweights, oh man, dude, Eubanks would be such a monster. Nico Montano! Surprised to see her. She's gonna be fighting against the undefeated Julia Avila. And that is surprisingly it for the women's bantamweight division. So I'm looking at this right now. There are definitely some fun matchups here, but as of right now, as I'm talking, the current state of the UFC women's divisions here, the bantamweight division has to be the weakest one here so far. I'm not even going to count the women's featherweight division because the women's featherweight division is pretty much non-existent at this point. So the women's bantamweight division, it's a lot more weaker than the strawweight and the flyweight now. But once again, that huge fight there, Germaine Radame against Julian Pena, their fight's going to be coming up on October 3. That's going to be another really fun matchup there. Germaine Radame, I always believe, should be competing, should be fighting against Amanda Nunes, but Amanda Nunes has to deal with other things right now. She's the champion for 2 division. If the UFC featherweight division wasn't even a thing, we could see Germaine Radame fighting against Amanda Nunes in a rematch. Because as of right now, there's not a single fighter out there who is as close as defeating champion Amanda Nunes than Germaine Radame. No one else out there. Those are the lineups coming up for the women's divisions here. Coming up this Saturday is Yana Kunitskaya against Julian Stardenko. I'm surprised Kunitskaya is the favorite here. Because Kunitskaya, she's coming off ring rust, and Julian Stardenko, she's coming off an amazing fight. But Stardenko has not been as tested as Yana here. Because I'm right now looking at the moneyline odds right now, and Yana Kunitskaya is coming in as a favorite at minus 225. I'm a firm believer if it's minus 200, the minus 200 zone, then that's when there's like a lot of people who just don't have faith with the other opponent there. But wow. I'm also very surprised that, I am very surprised that Srilanko even is getting the opportunity here. I wouldn't really think so at this point though. Oh, so I'm looking at Kunitskaya right now, how she's reacting to everything. And she's currently doing her, wow, I'm surprised right now. So she's right now doing press work right now. She's like signing her autograph on towards the fight posters for Derek Lewis and Alexa Oleinik, like giant posters right now. I'm surprised. They're still selling the posters? Okay, I'm just go off on a tangent here right now. But is there really any money for your fighters to go, sign posters here? Because I'm looking at this image right now of Yana Kunitskaya. She's signing all these posters, which I'm gonna guess is gonna be sold on the UFC store. I'm not really sure. I don't follow the collecting scene enough. I have friends who collect a lot of niche things, but I can't imagine somebody being like, hey, yeah, I am excited to go and ordering this Derek Lewis versus Alexa Oleinik poster that was signed by Yana Kunitskaya. It seems niche. It seems very, very niche here. Even Yana doesn't seem all that excited about it. Actually, honestly, it doesn't even look like Yana is even all that focused on the fight right now. Cause I just see her posting like random stuff right now on her Instagram that don't really necessarily match all that well. Okay, no, she is training, but she's like training and like doing photo shoot stuff. Current day mixed martial arts is weird. And so once again, you're listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, coming back right after the short break here.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back. And so I like to end all my podcasts with something diverging away from just strictly and purely MMA news here. I sometimes do, MMA pay-per-view reviews. I sometimes do like UFC MMA personality quizzes, or I just go off talking about my favorite topic as it pertains to the world of mixed martial arts, or I go into detail about, fighter economics. But this time, I'll be talking about hot takes here. I found an interesting Reddit post here. where people are giving their hot takes, their controversial opinions on aspects of mixed martial arts. And a lot of people have very hot takes as it pertains to women's mixed martial arts. First one I found is that other than Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, there hasn't been any major UFC star to break into the mainstream there. And I agree, there currently is no UFC star that's breaking to the mainstream. There are currently fighters who are trying to do so, but there are also a lot of fighters who don't really care, and they're just primarily focused on just a wannabe fighter, just a fighter right now. Because for Conor McGregor and Ronda Rousey, their shtick was, I'm a great fighter. Oh wow, movies. Oh wow, TV shows. Oh wow, commercials. They just ended up being enveloped by the media circus of like the Hollywood like spectrum. And then when I'm thinking about the current stars of the UFC, do you think Amanda Nunes cares all that much about being in a movie? Now she is making money right now doing commercials and advertising, but beyond that part of media, she's like opening up her own like daycare center, she's being a mom, she's doing a lot of charity work right now. Like Amanda Nunes, she has other stuff to deal with other than like movies, TV shows, and promoting some like perfume or some clothing line. Nunes doesn't have that same mentality that Ronda Rousey has. And I'm not knocking that as a negative thing. I'm just saying that I think there are a lot of stars in the UFC who can break into the mainstream. It's just whether or not these fighters really want to do so. And you know, a lot of fighters, they don't have to. They don't have to do that. They can just be primarily focused on mixed martial arts. But I know there are fighters like Tyron Woodley and Colby Covington, two fighters, and to an extent kind of Kamaru Usman and Alexander Hernandez. They're trying really, really hard. Alright, then they're trying ultra hard to break into the mainstream. The problem though is that Tyron Woodley, other than the fact that he's a fighter, he's also a reporter for TMZ. He also does acting in the side for like movies and TV shows that no one cares about. He has his own music career that's going on, where he's like, wants to be a legit real artist. Here's the problem with Tyron Woodley. So if it was Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, or any other likable UFC athlete doing that, he would gain a lot more traction to the mainstream. But since Tyron Woodley is so hard to like, all that like TMZ stuff, him being an actor, him being a musician, it's just not translating all that well. And the reason why it's not translating all that well, and it's because before a fighter ends up being huge and big in the mainstream, they need to go and be at least kind of likable, kind of be seen as a mega superstar. And Tyron Woodley isn't that. He has the potential to be that, but he's not that. Colby Covington is trying way too hard to the point that's circling backwards, and that I just don't see where Colby Covington, in a world where Colby Covington can be like a movie star in an Avengers film, or a voice actor for a popular video game franchise. He's in the same boat as Ben Askren and Chael Sonnen, in that they're huge nerds for the Hollywood glamour and stuff, but they themselves don't want to actually be part of that because they can't, because they're not talented enough, or they don't have the natural charisma. Then again, they don't have the natural charisma that Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor have. And whatever your opinion is on Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, on their persona, on their character, and how they deal with losses, it's totally on to you. But you can't deny the fact that they have something, they have the it factor that appeals to a large audience. I found another post here that says, Ronda Rousey went from overrated to underrated really quickly. Is Ronda Rousey underrated? Is she? Someone says, MMA fans buy into narratives about a fighter way too quickly. Khabib will lose before he retires, and people will act like he wasn't that great and barely fought anyone good in hindsight. That's a real possibility. There could be a chance where 10 years down the line, we're going to see Khabib, we're going to be talking about Khabib, and we'll be like, well, Khabib never fought anybody that good. I mean, come on, Dustin Poirier, like, the dude was pretty much a glorified gatekeeper, and Conor McGregor, he was all a show. He wasn't even that good of a fighter in the first place. Like, there could be a narrative where some weird, strange narrative that Khabib might not be a great fighter. Once again, that's just a narrative. I don't really believe that. Ronda Rousey, there are many reasons as to why it was easy to dislike Ronda Rousey. Many reasons. Her prioritizing the Hollywood glitz and glamour over the octagon. Her being so pushed and forced into every aspect of media that it was painful to watch. It was annoying to hear and talk about Ronda Rousey and seeing Ronda Rousey's face outside the octagon, because it was so forced and she was so in your face. It's kind of like Dwayne The Rock Johnson back at 2018, where it was just, it was like hard to deal with the guy. Now he's kind of let go. Kind of. If you haven't done this yet, try to follow The Rock on Twitter and Instagram and try to read whatever he posts without being kind of tilted. Someone here puts up says, I don't understand how people call her the Royce Gracie of the women's MMA. It's not like she trained a martial art that no one really knew or how to defend. She had all the resources everyone else did. She was just really effing good at a lot of stuff and crushed some people with it. I think in hindsight, you can always see how fighters could have strategized differently to make sure her fights are... Okay, so Ronda Rousey is an all-time great, alright? Now, whether or not how good she is in hindsight doesn't really all matter that much. It's kind of like Royce Gracie. Like, Royce Gracie, by the time he fought against Matt Hughes, has no business fighting the octagon. And so Ronda Rousey, is she overrated or underrated? During her time as champion, she was 100% overrated. And in hindsight, I would say she's neither overrated or underrated at this point. I think people recognize her, that she was overrated at the time of her being a champion, but at this moment, in hindsight, knowing what happens in the women's divisions, people just see Ronda Rousey as, oh man, she was great in her time. She was great, she was an unstoppable champion, she was a media darling, the UFC pushed her a lot, but right now, nobody can safely say that they miss Ronda Rousey in the octagon. I don't believe it. The only fight that makes sense for Ronda Rousey would be her fight against Chris Cyborg, just because that's the dream matchup that people just want to see. We're not going to see, people don't want to see Ronda Rousey versus Chris Cyborg because we want to see an awesome fight. No, we want to see Ronda Rousey versus Chris Cyborg because of the name value. That's honestly about it right now. Ronda Rousey shouldn't be competing at the highest level in the bantamweight division. I don't think so. I think if Ronda Rousey were to compete and fight against somebody in the level of Cynthia Calivlllo or Julian Pena or Jermaine Randomay, she wouldn't be doing well for herself. She just wouldn't. She would easily be smoked by anybody ranked in the top 5 of the division. Is she underrated? No, I think she's properly rated. I think people have a good understanding of where Ronda Rousey is. She is an all-time great. That's one, because she was fighting in a division that wasn't all that stacked, that wasn't as developed. The women's divisions right now are a lot more developed than it was back then, back 5-6 years ago. So yeah. So, somebody here is saying Conor McGregor's underrated. Nah, he's not underrated. I don't even think Conor McGregor is overrated. I think he's probably rated where he is right now. No audience creates a more pure fighting atmosphere, and for skill's sake, should be the norm. No. UFC has to make money somehow. I want these fighters to make money, and a part of their money comes from the gates. From people buying pay-per-views, through people paying money to even get in the building to go watch a show. So it should be the norm. Is it a more pure fighting atmosphere? I don't know. What do you talk about pure fighting atmosphere? Like, if you want to talk about like pure, straight up, here's the thing, mixed martial arts, it's not even pure fighting. You know why? Because there are rules in UFC. So it's not even pure fighting, if you think about it. And you're hearing so many voices. You're hearing the cornerman talk, you're hearing the referee talk, you're hearing judges and people around the building is murmuring each other. You hear everything the commentator table is saying. So no, it's not even, the fighters can't even pretend to hear that. Because there are fighters who talk back at but there's a lot of controversy right now in the UFC commentary booth right now. Because these fighters can hear it. They're hearing so many things. They're hearing so many different words coming from so many different people that there's no way I can ever say that should be the norm, ever. But people are enjoying it. People are enjoying the audience of not being there, but I miss the audience. I miss the audience being there because they can really make a fight a lot more bigger than it actually is. They can make a boring fight seem exciting, but they can also make an exciting fight. Yeah, they can make a boring fight exciting. They can never make an exciting fight boring. Alright? There's no negative for an audience being there, other than if a fighter is just uncomfortable with thousands of people watching him, but that comes with the territory of the job. That's the equivalent of like being an actor, or being a movie actor, or being a theater actor, and then you're really, like, iffy about people watching you. It's so strange. It comes with the territory of being a professional fighter. If you want pure fighting, do backyard brawls, okay? That to me is pure fighting, because, the rules. Alright? Someone says, the next fighter to pass Conor in terms of star power will not be liked by the sub, because it'll be a young dork who markets himself or herself through memes and dumb videos. Israel Adesanya has a lot of potential. I talked with somebody about this because I'm right now doing like a short mini doc or mini video on people trying to get into mixed martial arts. I talked to this one girl, I talked to this one guy, and both of them gave very different viewpoints as to what would make them watch mixed martial arts or watch UFC. And one of them said Israel Adesanya is what got them into watching MMA in the first place. And Israel Adesanya has a lot of potential. The guy has natural charisma. The guy's a star. He really is. It's just someone mentions Israel Adesanya also, like, this guy's kind of a dork. Yeah. He's a huge anime nerd. Like, he goes into the octagon doing the Naruto tuning stuff. Like, he's super cringy, but he connects to a target audience, that 18 to 34 demographic, that are really into this stuff. And that's how things are. So the people I interviewed, when they're talking about, what's appealing about the UFC, both of them mentioned that it seems like the UFC is trying to appeal to people in their late 40s, early 50s. Like, nothing about the UFC product actually appeals to anybody in the demographic of 18 to 34. Why should it? Like, there's so many things that someone who's 18 to 34 can watch. Why watch UFC? So many things. Like, I'll be honest with you right now. PewDiePie or Markiplier talking about internet memes is more popular and brings in more money than Colby Covington talking trash. Alright? That's just a reality. And I think if the UFC really wants that next big star, they have to capitalize on that, and they gotta recognize that their show has to appeal to a younger demographic. It's gonna anger all the hardcore fans. I think a lot of hardcore fans who are upset with Israel Adesanya, considering that his character is so different from everybody else. That there's nobody out there who's like Israel Adesanya, who's currently at his status in mixed martial arts. Also, there's a lot of fighters that just don't want to play the star game. They really don't. Like, once again, do you really think Amanda Nunes really wants to be in the next Fast and Furious movie? Do you really think that? No, she doesn't. She has other stuff to deal with. And there are a lot of other things, there are a lot of other priorities that many fighters, like, Valentina, she's doing right now. She's doing it. I don't think, and depending on how good her movie with Halle Berry is, or where it ends up, Valentina Shevchenko could potentially be the next big mainstream star, depending on how good her movie is with Halle Berry. And that brings us to a close for today's podcast. You have been a great audience. Next week, I will go further with some more hot takes here. Once again, all I gotta say is thank you for listening to the GSMC Women's MMA Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'd like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. and have a good night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Women's Mixed Martial Arts Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.